On October 2nd, 1978, Eileen Manwaring gave birth to a baby boy, me. To put that date into perspective, I was born 5 months before NASA's Voyager 1 encountered Jupiter. Both of my parents were graduates of Utah State University. My mom had a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and my dad, Ted, had a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. I was the youngest of 3 kids, my 8-year-old sister, Jenny, and 6-year-old brother, Mike. We lived in a small 3-bedroom, 2-bath home on the family ranch in Woodville, Virginia, that was situated along the river. Mom was home with us, and Dad worked for a company that built rocket engines. 3 years later, in 1981, when Voyager 2 was approaching Saturn, my parents divorced, and we moved from Virginia to Utah with Mom so she could pursue a master's degree at BYU. Grandpa suggested that the 3 kids be allowed to stay with them in Logan, Utah, so Mom could focus on her studies. Logan was about 2 hours away from Provo, where BYU is. Grandpa was a graduate from Berkeley and a former high-level member of the OSS, or Office of Strategic Services, in CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. He valued education very highly and saw this offer as a way to help his daughter succeed. We lived with Grandma and Grandpa for 2 years. Mike and Jenny were enrolled in elementary school, and I was enrolled in preschool at the Joy School. I still remember how excellent it was when I earned my Zip My Coat certificate. While at BYU, Mom met Jeff, and they were married in 1983. Together again, we all moved to Salt Lake City, where Jeff was finishing up a second master's degree at the University of Utah. I started kindergarten at Bonneville Elementary in Salt Lake City. About halfway through the year, we moved to Draper, Utah, and I finished kindergarten there. Draper is a suburb of Salt Lake. During this time, my little brother Ari was born. Soon after, we moved again to American Fork, Utah. This time we would stay for a few years. I attended Baird Elementary from 1st to 6th grade, and in 1986, my sister Rena was born. When Rena was a toddler, she would always ask to go for a drive before bed. Her favorite place to go was to see the cows on the hill. On one of these drives, we noticed a home for sale near Rena's cows. My parents inquired about it and bought the home. That house in Pleasant Grove is where my parents still live to this day. Now, the move happened in 1989 when I was in 5th grade. Because I had been accepted to a class for more advanced kids, I was allowed to remain in attendance at Barrett, even though we had moved outside the school boundaries. Again, a nod to the focus on education throughout my life. Our new home was in a more rural setting. We had an entire acre, and most of our free time was spent improving the property. As you can see, the hard work paid off. Anyway, I attended Pleasant Grove Junior High and was involved in band, theater, student government, and took all the upper-level math and science courses. Later on in high school, I continued with my trajectory in math and science. I also played on the football and basketball teams. It all came to a screeching halt in my junior year. At the age of almost 17, I had my wisdom teeth removed and had complications with uncontrolled bleeding from the gums. A blood test revealed symptoms of leukemia, and on September 15, 1995, I was diagnosed with chronic myelogenous leukemia, or CML. Treatments involved a bone marrow transplant and other surgeries like a splenectomy. The end result was that I missed quarters 2 through 4 of my junior year. When I returned to school for my senior year, I had to take courses at the local college and do packets in addition to attending my classes in high school to graduate on time with my class, which I did with honors. In 1997, I graduated from Pleasant Grove High School and accepted enrollment at Utah State University. I began my collegiate career majoring in pre-med biology. The second trimester, I changed my major to computer engineering. The third trimester, I changed it back to biology. By the time I was through at Utah State, I had changed my major 5 times, wrapping it up with math and then biochemistry. But I digress. Important things happened in my life while I was a student at Utah State. In 1998, before my second year of college, I left school to serve a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in San Diego, California. For 2 years straight, I abandoned math and science and focused solely on the Gospels. While rewarding in the end, I found it very difficult to push my usual focus to the side. In 2000, I met my soon-to-be wife, Jennifer, and we married. Our happiness was soon interrupted, however, when I had a minor relapse of CML in 2001. Thankfully, I only required a blood transfusion from my original bone marrow donor and to practice some relative isolation. Back on track with life, we returned to Utah State, where I was still attending school. By 2005, I had run out of money and time at Utah State. Fortunately, I got my first job in a lab at the same time. From 2005 to 2008, I worked as a research and development chemist. Along the way, I was an integral part of starting 2 companies, AgSciTech and Petrobiotech. While I am no longer involved with these companies, I am pleased to report that they are still going strong. Throughout my career as a student, my classmates and study partners told me that I should be a teacher. I had pushed back on the idea, however, because I feared I would not make enough money to support a family. In 2008, I decided I didn't care anymore about the money and quit my job to go back to school. We moved home to Pleasant Grove, Utah, and I enrolled at Utah Valley University, majoring in chemistry and physics education. My course is complete. I graduated with a bachelor's in science in chemistry and physics education in 2011. My first job as a high school teacher would be at Copper Hills High School in West Jordan, Utah, that same year. At Copper Hills, I was involved as the advisor for the Science, MESA, and TSA clubs. MESA stands for Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement, and TSA stands for Technology Student Association. Copper Hills is located on the west side of the Salt Lake City Valley, and I discovered that hardly any of my students had been able to experience the beautiful outdoor landscape that Utah has to offer. I developed a summer beginning research course called Field Science. In collaboration with the other science teachers, I would take the kids camping and hiking, and they would carry out their own simple research projects. We also took them on field trips to the 5 national parks in Utah and the many state parks we have here. It was a great time, and I loved my work. In 2013, we adopted our son, Corbin. We only had 24 hours notice, so everyone, including the Copper Hills staff, pitched in and gave us baby showers. A couple of years later, in 2016, I started a master's program at Utah Valley University in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis on educational technology. I used the Field Science course I had developed in the case study for my master's thesis and graduated in 2018 on May the 4th. That's right, I became a master on Star Wars Day. I accepted a position for the following school year at Roosevelt High School in Seattle, Washington, and we moved to a nearby suburb, Linwood, that fall. It became rapidly apparent, however, that the big city atmosphere of Seattle was not a match to the more rural lifestyle my family had grown accustomed to. The following year, I would return to the Salt Lake City Valley to teach at Highland High School in the Salt Lake City suburb of Sugar House. Resettled back in Pleasant Grove, Utah, I began to feel the itch for another round of graduate school, the PhD. I applied and was accepted to the University of Texas at San Antonio in the ILT department for fall 2020. All set and ready to go, my first year as a PhD student began in the dead center of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unlike Voyager 1 and 2 that started their journeys about the same time as I did and are now cruising in interstellar space, my 43-year journey has returned me home. I and my family are still here in Pleasant Grove, Utah, and we're loving it.